Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony for AnthonysCustoms, and for this review, yes, I'm reviewing a PlayArt Sky figure again. This is the Gears of War Marcus FENIX. You guys might remember that I said I'm done with PlayArt Sky, not that long ago, but kind of a while ago. I haven't reviewed one in a while. But a lot of people told me that I was their source for PlayArt Sky reviews and that they were gonna not know what to do, so I figured, what the heck, I'll get the figure, and then if I don't like them, I can always sell them off. That might work, so I'll go ahead and do some reviews. I have to say, luckily, this figure, they seem to have corrected a lot of the things that I used to have a lot of problems with. Now, I don't know if that's a regular thing for this line now. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't adjusted the way they do things, but it does still have a lot of the same problems as before. Number one being the really high price point and minimal accessories, and then number two, general quality control. Now, again, this one is not that bad. It has mostly I have really good things to say about it, but there are a few things. The first of which, as soon as I opened the box, that stupid garbage display stand that they include, it just fell out into a million pieces. It wasn't in the packaging in any way, shape, or form. So, I mean, they can't even get the packaging right. That's very disappointing. But, again, this figure is pretty solid for the most part. So let's get him off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just about 11 inches tall, which makes him just about 28 centimeters. So, you know, it's not the biggest PlayArt figure in the world, but it's one of the larger size ones, so that's okay. I don't know if he's quite as bulky as he should be, especially for the Gears 1 look. He's definitely very bulky, and he does capture the right general aesthetic, but it seems to me like they're missing about maybe 10 to 20% of thickness on this guy. I mean, they were super exaggeratedly thick, but it generally looks pretty good. The paint job on this guy, again, is mostly pretty good. I mean, we have like the blue circles are pretty much well lined up. All the little accent paint work is pretty good. The COG logo on there is pretty nice. I mean, it looks all right. The face is definitely better than a lot of the PlayArts figures were back when I was still collecting them. You can see it's a pretty good likeness, and it's not like it's exceedingly glossy or anything. Like, that was a pretty big issue back in the day, so I'm glad that they fixed that. The shading for his stubble looks pretty good, the 5 o'clock shadow. I don't know, I mean, it looks like they've maybe refined their quality a little bit in terms of the aesthetic. It looks mostly pretty good. The sculpt is very clean as always. It looks like it's mostly solid, so that's good. Let's talk about the accessories. Now, they still don't include enough accessories, I think, for the price point and the quality control that they provide. We need more accessories, especially on this guy. We only got the Lancer and a knife. Now, I don't remember in Gears 1 them using the knife all that much. The Lancer is very nicely detailed. It looks good. It has an interchangeable handle for when they use it to do the like execution thing, the chainsaw thing. So that's cool. But how about a pistol? I mean, you always have two weapons in that game. I mean, at least two weapons, unless you run out of ammo or something. But we don't get a pistol? Like, what the heck? Why? Why don't we get a secondary gun? That's pretty lame. But we do have some hands. So we have the two fist hands that come on them in the package. Two gripping hands, a trigger finger hand, and a secondary hand for holding the front of the weapon, and then two relaxed hands just for style poses. And that's it. So, I mean, why don't we have a second gun, or at least a grenade, or something? I mean, come on, is that unreasonable to ask for a second weapon when the game was all about, I mean, it is a first-person shooter, not a first-person, here's your knife that goes in your booter. Anyway, let's talk about the figure. As far as the articulation goes, the head is on, it feels to me, I didn't take it apart because I'm afraid I'll break it. It feels like a double ball peg for the top of the neck, and then at least a single ball peg, maybe a double for the bottom of the neck, which is a big deal because back when I stopped collecting these, they kept doing that stupid thing with the hinge in the neck, and I hated that, and it didn't work well. And now the neck moves around just fine, much like it used to on the older figures. And then the head moves around just fine. There's no gapping issues, and you get good posability all the way around. So I'm very pleased with that. That's a big improvement, and I'm glad they made it. Now the shoulders, it looks like they haven't changed that very much at all. This is all soft plastic. The whole torso is, because we still have that weird skeleton design where you have the ball hinge for the shoulder, which it's not terrible. I mean, as you can see, it can be posed pretty well, depending on what pose you're trying to do. It's a little bit difficult to bring the arm straight forward without the shoulder pad sticking up in a goofy fashion. They definitely should have had the shoulder pads connected to the shoulder rather than hanging off the top. Even if that's how it is in the game doesn't have real-world physics to deal with. This should be connected to the arm. But otherwise, the arm moves pretty well, and I'm pretty happy about that. So you have the ball hinge. You can technically rotate it around at the shoulder, but you do get your bicep swivel down here. So that's really good. That's not really going to be a problem at all. For the elbow, you have your single ball hinge again, which doesn't look great when it's down, but it's not terrible. And you do get 90 degrees when you bend it, and it's mostly hidden by the elbow pad, though. You get a little bit of weird, like, poofiness in this region. Still pretty good. The wrist, on the other hand, being just another ball hinge, they didn't even try to hide it. I mean, this could be like hollowed out so that it goes forward more on the hinge, and then same thing for the wrists, but no, we just have two big flat blocks of plastic on either end of that ball hinge. So it's very ugly, but you do get really good range out of it, so maybe once you pose it, it won't be that big of a deal. The lower torso was definitely a problem back when I was collecting these. They kept doing that stupid ball peg hinge combination thing, which sometimes kind of worked, but mostly didn't. It feels like, and I didn't take it apart to check again, it feels like they went back to a double ball peg for the upper torso and then that big single ball peg for the lower torso. You can move the upper torso around all the way, pretty much unencumbered, and that's really good. The only issue is sometimes when you lean them all the way forward, you can kind of get a little bit of a gap, and then it kind of catches on that when you're trying to pose him, but that's hardly a big deal. You can just wiggle it around and free it up. So he gets really good range pretty much everywhere using that top double ball peg, and then you also have that bottom ball peg, which, let's see if I can just grab that piece, moves around really well. But here's the thing, both of these ball pegs are fairly loose. It's not entirely floppy, but it is fairly, I mean, it's noticeably loose. So hopefully that's not the case for everybody, but you do get really good range, and there's not any huge gapping or anything. So at least on this guy with his bulky armor, they really executed, for the most part, really well. He's got a floating belt, which is nice. Doesn't get in the way at all. It's nice and soft plastic. Crotch piece is also a floating piece and soft plastic. We still have the ratchet hinges, for ball hinges for the hips. You can get the legs out pretty far to the side. Not too far, but probably far enough. You can get the legs pretty far forward depending on how you have him posed, so that works pretty well. Here's one kind of issue. I don't know how they could have really gotten around this without giving him really wide hips. The legs can't go down straight. They have to be at this kind of weird stance. But I doubt it's really that big of a deal because you're most likely not going to have him standing straight up and down anyway, at least in some kind of pose, and in which case it won't be an issue. So that's okay. Now, the whole hip does move around that ball socket, or a ball hinge, so you don't really need a thigh swivel, but they put a really ugly swivel in there, which I don't get. Why? It already has more range than most figures have in the hip socket. Why do you have this really ugly swivel that's not even hidden? It's just really ugly. They shouldn't have done that. For the knees, we have a double jointed knee, which I thought they were going to do a good job in hide because you have all this extra plastic. You can just hollow it out and have the knee sculpted all the way in there so that when you bend it, it just looks like it's one continuous piece. They didn't. You get a giant knee gap, which definitely not a good situation. It's very, very, very ugly. Huge gap for the knee. So that is a big bummer. And then it's also true for the bottom, though it's a little bit less of a deal because you have this big knee pad to hide it. So the knees are just, while you get good range, they are exceedingly ugly from the front. Very, very disappointed with that. They could have so easily had this piece longer and curved and hide the joint completely. It could have just tucked in perfectly, would have been fantastic, but they didn't do that. Down here for the ankle, we'll do it on this side. We have our ball hinge, and it is kind of offset. So it does give you really good range going forward and back, so I like that a whole bunch. But as you'll notice, it's a very floppy ball hinge, and this is a very heavy figure, so it's very difficult to pose him without him wanting to fall over. So the ankle rocker on this guy, you can rotate that foot around on that ball hinge and give yourself a really, really nice ankle rocker. So that's pretty fantastic. And then you also have a toe hinge, which is really far back on the toe, but it's offset so that it actually works fairly reasonably. And I like that. And then the armor is fairly soft down here too, so there's really no problem with the ankles other than the ball hinge itself is very loose. So ultimately, this guy is, he's kind of good. I mean, they did a really good job with it for the most part. We do have some issues here and there. The shoulder pads could definitely be better. Hips are okay, knees are really bad, and ankles are in design really good, but kind of too loose. So I don't know. I mean, has it restored my faith in the brand? Not entirely, but I am looking forward to the Wolverine and the Deadpool that I'll be reviewing for you guys. And, you know, I don't know. It's a really heavy price tag for a figure like this. I think the price tag needs to be lower, or the QC needs to be higher. We shouldn't have floppy torsos or floppy ankles or minimal accessories for 150 bucks. I don't know if we're getting our money's worth. But what is here is done for the most part really well, so I guess I have to say I recommend it, just with the caveat of you needing to be aware of those issues. It is in stock at Big Bad Toy Store, so if you want to pick one up, add him to your video game character collection, I would say go ahead and do it and just be aware of those things. So there it is, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I have new videos up every single day. We talk about action figures, movies, TV shows, video games, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you come back for that. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. And in the meantime, keep collecting.